Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. So today we are going to continue the discussion on chapter number 17. Okay, in last session we discussed about the due diligence. We discussed in detail about how due diligence is carried out, what are the types of due diligence, when we are carrying the due diligence, what are the specific things that we take care. For example, the due diligence is more onto the the role, or you can say the need based activity, rather than having well defined strategy. So whenever you need a due diligence, you carry out it. Okay, so the need, we discussed the need of the due diligence, when it is required, buyer side due diligence, seller side due diligence, various types of due diligence that we carry out. Okay, so various examples that we discussed for the due diligence, or various types of due diligence that we discussed. How we carry out the due diligence, how the planning for the due diligence is done, how the whole due diligence process is done. We tried to understand that, we got a good understanding of the process, and then how the reporting part on the due diligence done. We also gone through, we also went through the report, one draft report with respect to the due diligence, so that we can understand better that how the reporting for the due diligence is done. And at the end, like, due diligence reporting is not a standard format the way we have seen in other kind of reportings. No, it's different. It is more onto the type of the due diligence, the objective you want to achieve, and the detail that you need to present into the due diligence report. So that was the due diligence part. Then we started with the investigation. Like, what is the investigation, when it is required, how it is different from audit, some few questions with respect to which makes it different from the audit, and some things that we discuss in the investigation. Now what we will do is, we will take a step ahead and we will discuss the types of investigation. Basically, the target here is to understand the types of investigations. One, we will see statutory investigations, the investigations which are performed under the Act. I would say Companies Act. Second is the investigations which are of a non-statutory nature, means they can be performed as an agreed upon procedure, means not the standard that I'm talking about, but as in the engagement wise, when it is required, not under the Act, not related to the Companies Act, but beyond that, whenever it is required as per the engagement or as per the client. Okay, so there are two segments, non-statutory and the statutory. So we will discuss both of them in detail, and then we will go to the forensic accounting, and we will see how forensic accounting is different and what we understand by forensic accounting. Okay, so very good topic it will be when we'll go to the forensic accounting. Now, before I proceed and deep dive into investigation, any doubt you guys have with respect to any of the topic that we have discussed till now? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, great. No issues. So during the session also, if you guys have any doubt, you can just write it down or unmute yourself. You can ask the doubt. Okay. So let's continue with the discussion, taking a step ahead and discussing the types of investigation. Basically, we go back to the notes. Okay. Now, when I talk about types of investigation, basically, as I told you, there are two types. Okay, one is a statutory in nature, and second is your you can say non-statutory investigation. Now, what is statutory in nature, or what is statutory investigation? Basically, statutory investigation is an investigation which is carried out under the Act, under the law. Okay, when the law requires an investigation, that is statutory investigation. For example, I'll give you some examples and we'll discuss those sections also. So when I talk about statutory investigation, I basically talk about either you can have an investigation into the affairs of the company, or you can have an investigation into the ownership of the company. Okay, so it is divided into under further two more sections. investigation into affairs of a company, and second category goes to the investigation of the ownership of the company. Okay. Now, when I talk about investigation into the affairs of the company, okay, basically you have an investigation which is done under 210, 212, or 230. So there are three sections which are involved, which is 210, 212, and 213 of Companies Act. But when I talk about investigation into the ownership of company, it goes with the section 26 of Companies Act. Now we will understand these sections to have a good understanding of the investigation, and also we will see why these investigations are carried out. See, investigation, okay, we understood there is an investigation, but why and what is done in that, that is something we need to see. Okay, so let's go for first 210, that is the investigation into the affairs of a company. Now, when I talk about investigation into the affairs of the company, now this kind of investigation, okay, can be done when central government is of the opinion that the investigation requires to understand how the affairs are being managed, how the company is being managed. Okay. So when this is required, like, when the, central government thinks, no, now it's time, we need to understand how the affairs are being managed. At that point in time, this investigation is done. So investigation is basically initiated by the central government. Okay. So section 210, you can say central government is of opinion, okay, that investigation is necessary. Then it is initiated. Or if a report has been received by the central government or the registrar, the registrar is sending a report to the central government, and then central government initiate the investigation. So if a report is received from registrar with respect to this particular investigation, for example, registrar may appoint an inspector under section 208 to carry out an inspection, and then on the basis of that inspection, then a report may be submitted. Or when there is one more criteria, there are actually two more criteria where this kind of investigation can be invoked by the central government. Second is, if a special resolution is passed by the company, okay, special resolution passed by a company that they want the company's affair to be investigated, then it will happen. Or lastly, in the public interest, if it is in the public interest, then an investigation can be ordered. So if there is a report by registrar, if there is a special resolution, if it is in the public interest, central government may initiate an investigation into the affairs of the company. Clear with this? Okay. Now, there is one more thing that we need to understand. Okay. This particular kind of investigation. Now, why these investigations are carried out? Or why this particular thing, these investigations happen. See, whenever, there are scenarios where the central government or anyone feels that the affairs, like the way companies are being managed, are not appropriate. If they need some more information, if they need something additional, they may, start an investigation to understand how companies are being managed. Okay, to understand whether the activities of the companies, whether they are being carried and are in the nature of which is, prejudicial to the interest of the company. Basically, the concept here is, or the goal here is to identify whether any activity is carried out within the company which is not in the interest of the company, to either defraud the company, to either defraud the shareholder. It is here to understand, is there any such activity? Now, that's why these kind of investigations are ordered. And when I say investigations are ordered, again, the details that how investigation will be done, we will see now in a few minutes. But once these investigations are ordered, in that case, section, you can say 217, or, there are other sections also of the Companies Act, which comes into the picture. Now, what are these sections and what they do is, basically, whenever an investigation happens, so there is a section 217 which talks about procedure, power of an inspector. There is a section 219 again which talks about powers of inspector to conduct investigation under 210, 212 or 213. Okay, so there are various sections which defines that how or to investigate into the affairs of the company, and for that we have a section 219. So basically, section 219 talks about the power of inspector. To conduct investigations under 210, 212 or 230. Now, basically what happens is, when investigators are appointed to conduct these kind of investigations, okay, they basically, are given powers that, okay, you can have the access to the information, you can carry out the investigations in a such a way that there should be no hindrance, no blockage, and, no kind of bottleneck in your investigation, and you can do it freely, you can get access to the data freely. That's why section 219 specifically lays that whenever these kind of investigation happens, okay, the inspector can not only investigate the company itself, but he can investigate the holding subsidiary, his subsidiary, something like that, which are in the part of the group. So it does not only restrict the investigation to the company, but to any other body corporate which is relevant at that particular point in time, or which was company subsidiary or holding, or a subsidiary of any holding, means fellow subsidiary. So inspector can conduct investigation basically with respect to company, subsidiary of company, holding of company, or subsidiary of such holding, means fellow subsidiary. Okay, so investigator can go and can conduct investigation in these companies. It can not only go for the companies, it can go for the directors also, managing directors. So he can go and conduct investigation also any other director, you can say. So he can conduct investigation into the affairs of these particular person. Even he can go further and check for the nominee of the companies, who can, who are working on the instructions of the directors, and all those people are covered by the investigation. And then once he carry out the investigation, okay, once he carry out the investigation, then he has to submit his report to the central government. So basically 219 talks about, okay, how he can carry out the investigation, what are the powers, where he can go when he is, carrying out the investigation. when it comes to the inspector. Okay, even employees are also included over here. And if you see section 217, I just give you a understanding of section 217 again. That is a procedure and powers of inspector. Section 219 talks about powers of inspector to conduct an investigation, which talks about the scope he can go to. Section 217 basically talks about you can say the procedure, or the more onto the side of like what he can do or what he cannot do. Okay. Now, for example, section 217. Section 217 talks about he can keep custody of the books. Section 217 talks about he can examine people on oath. Okay. Section 217 talks about that, okay, this particular inspector, okay, can have all the powers which are vested in the civil code under code of civil procedure. Now it is being changed, but again, he will be having all the powers of civil code. So it talks about the power like summoning, enforcing, how he can enforce the attendance of the people, how he can summon the people, how he can inspect the book. So all those things are listed down in detail under section 217. And section 217 in detail provides like, okay, whether he can, take in his custody the books of account. What if the data is not available here, but the books of accounts are in the foreign state? How he can carry out the investigation in the foreign states? All those things are listed down in section 217. Okay. He can get what you can say assistance from other inspecting agencies or police. So all that thing is listed down in section 217. Basically, section 217 lays down like, okay, how you can carry out the investigation. And that becomes very important because it talks about the power without which investigation cannot be carried out. Now see, the purpose of the investigation is to understand, to establish the facts. Okay, that's why it becomes very important to have such kind of access and to have such kind of what you can say uh, you know powers to carry out the investigation. Otherwise it is not possible to carry out these kind of investigations. Clear with this, that how investigation under how the inspector has the power to carry out the investigation under 219 and 217. Any doubt? Okay. Now, basically, section 210, 212, 213, 216, if you see, that is also there in the self-placed module set A. Over there also it is explained in detail. But again, I will just provide you a glimpse of 212, 213 and 216, like what is covered in those sections. Basically, when we talk about 210 that we have seen investigation into the affairs of the company, when we talk about 212, this is nothing but an investigation by SFIO. So SFIO can carry out the investigations under section 212. And that is either on the receipt of the registrar, like same way, if the registrar has provided a report received from registrar, or again special resolution, again in public interest, all these things are there. Okay, but there is one more. On the receipt of any request from any department of central government. So if any department of central government or state government, if they ask or they request the SFIO to investigate, then SFIO will investigate into the affairs of the company. And then there is a section 213. Okay. Section 213, again, now this is basically, investigation into the affairs of the company, but here the order is passed by the tribunal. Under section 213, tribunal may order for the investigation into the affairs of the company when there are conditions in the case of section 213. Now the condition is that if there has been a resolution or there has been application made by, now application can be made by various people, but here is a requirement, that is the application made by 100 members, application by 100 members or 1/10 of share capital or 1/5 of members when there is there is no share capital. Basically, if the application is made by 100 members, 1/5 of the total members when there is no share capital, or 1/10 of the people holding share capital or shareholders, in that case tribunal may order. Or an application has been made by other person, with respect to, you can say, business conducted to defraud, or founders or promoters are involved into fraud. Okay, with respect to business, with respect to founders and promoters, or you can say members are not managing or performing the duties appropriately, something like that. If application is made by any other person on these grounds, or they are specifying these things, then again tribunal may order an investigation into the affairs of the company. So whenever there is an investigation, 210, 212, 213, 219 will be the power of inspector, the procedure will be as per the 270. So that is the investigation into the affairs of the company. Now there is one more type of investigation that we need to understand, that is the investigation into the ownership of company. This is about the affairs of the company, but there is one on the ownership of the company. Okay, here central government may order an investigation if they believe that there is a need to identify the real owners of the company, or who are at then financially interested, basically, or who holds the controlling influence. Okay, so if central government wants to identify this, they may order investigation under section 216. A quick question to you guys. There is one section in the Companies Act where the companies are required to report about the real owners of the company, or who has the financial interest. Can anyone tell me which section is that? If you have gone through the Companies Act, you might be aware about that. Anyone? Which section is that? Where the companies are required to report about the who is the financially interested in the company, who is the actual owner of the company. Anyone? No? Anything about section 90? Anyone? Section 90 of the Companies Act? gone through section 90 of the Companies Act? Have you read anywhere? Yes, no, silent. Okay. Basically, when I talk about section 90 of the Companies Act, okay, section 90 of the Companies Act talks about on the beneficial ownership. It talks about who is the beneficial owner in the company. Okay, reporting with respect to the beneficial ownership under section 90. Okay, companies had to file form BAN 2, BAN 3, remember? If you might have gone through. Okay. In that case, companies are required to report that. Or when the companies do not report, at that point in time, that becomes a very big problem for the company. And, if there are issues, then in that case, the central government or the tribunal may order, okay, the investigation into the affairs of the company. Just to investigation into the identification of the ownership of the company, to understand, like, who is the real owner behind it. So there are lot many, if you check that about the orders that are passed on to these areas, you will come to know that, okay, how the investigations are then carried out. What are the things that are carried out when these investigations happen? Okay, so you can go and check the adjudication orders with respect to these areas, with respect to understanding on the, like how the investigation under section 216 is being carried out, to understand who are the real owners of the company. You can get a lot of orders which are available on the portal also. Okay, that will be really helpful for you guys to understand actually on ground things of the investigation. Okay, so this is how actually practically things happen. Like this, how these investigations happen. Any doubt? Any question on this part? Any doubt, guys? No? Okay, no issues. So these are kind of statutory investigations. But there is another kind of investigation that we will see now. And that is more on the side of non-statutory, because that is based on the requirement or the requirement of that particular situation or that particular engagement. Now, what is that requirement and when these are carried out? So, non-statutory investigations basically are assignment based. They are basically assignment based investigations. Assignment based means they are carried in case in front of a particular assignment or engagement. For example, I'll give you an example. We will discuss one also. Investigation on behalf of incoming partner. Now, where this happens? This happens in a lot of LLPs. Okay, you can say real estate companies, where their real estate company or real estate LLPs are doing real estate business. They are registered with the RERA for the real estate projects, and they want to bring some new partners onto the business to have the good capital, so that they can continue the business, they can expand further. In those scenarios, the incoming partners of the LLP, who are again becoming the partner in that real estate business, who are investing, they actually go and they appoint investigators or inspectors to carry out investigation, who can be a chartered accountant. Basically, they are chartered accountant. Now, here what happens? When such kind of investigations are carried out, these particular investigators, or you can say chartered accountants, they go and verify with respect to specific pain points, if that has been given by the incoming partner, or if not, then they go and do the investigation to identify any issues or any problems that is there with respect to the reported numbers. For example, there is an ex builder. Ex builder wanted more partners and wanted to expand, or let's say he wanted to place or create a township basically project. Now, what ex builder will do is he'll invite investors. Okay, come and be part in my LLP, and that LLP will manage the whole township construction part. Now, once the investors are ready to invest, because ex builder will provide all the details. Like this is the this much acre of land is there, and this much flats will be prepared, or these much buildings will be built or created. This much will be the total inflow, total outflow of cash per square feet price and everything, numbers here, branding, everything. Now the incoming partner or the investor which is there, he has to make sure that okay, whatever the numbers are being told to me in the very good presentation, whether they are correct or not. Because at the end, what was shown to him before investment was the presentations, like what is the future prospect for that investor to invest into the company, invest into that LLP. Okay, then they will appoint investigators. Okay, go and investigate with respect to these numbers. Tell me if there is anything wrong. Tell me if there is anything critical on the ground. And then on the basis of that, they carry out the investigation. Now, always in such a scenario, there are agreements into the picture. Okay, they are either investment agreements or joint venture, joint operations agreement. There are multiple names to this. But basically, what this agreement does is they have a clause of the investigation. They have a clause that the incoming investor or the partner over here will be carrying out or appointing an inspector or investigator who will inspect the records, who will investigate the records, and he will be given full access. So that inspector or the investigator, which is being appointed in this scenario, gets the power, gets the detail or access to the information through that agreement, which is with the incoming partner or the investor with the firm or LLP. So when I talk about investigation on behalf of incoming partner, the investigator then goes, verifies the details of that particular, what you can say, partnership. Basically, when it is an LLP, the deed of LLP partnerships, what are the rights, what are the liabilities which have been talked about, the percentages, what is the prospectus of this particular project, the numbers that have been reported, asset liability valuations, how much orders are there in the hand, means how much of the project has been constructed, whether land is acquired or yet to be acquired, loans, financing, any disputes going on these projects or legal part. Basically, they go and verify, because in real estate cases, the major and important factor is your land, and they carry out investigation to understand whether the land is has a clear title or not. So a lot of things are there in those, computation of like, okay, what is the amount that the investor is investing, what is the percentage that is he's getting, plus exit clause. Exit clause means tomorrow the investor wants to, just, okay, fine, I'm done with the joint venture, joint operation, I don't want to continue further, I just want my money back. What is the exit clause? Like, what is the lock-in period? Those are certain things that, the investigator goes and verifies. And then on the basis of that, he prepares the report and gives to the incoming partner. So that is investigation on behalf of incoming partner. Any doubt with this? Any point that you might have not understood? Second case is investigation for valuation of shares. Of private company. See, companies which are listed, you have valuation available in the market, not an issue. In case of public limited companies, which are unlisted public companies also, details and informations are available publicly. You have the details; those are of such nature, that the details are available, so not an issue. But in case of private companies, closely held companies, where the companies have just started either the business or they are into the business, but it is privately held, closely held, and the information is not out there. If someone wants to invest in these kind of private companies, a valuation is required. For that, they may appoint investigator to carry out the investigation or to bring out the information for the purpose of the valuation. Like what are the net worth of that particular company? What is the profitability of that company? How that company is earning as of today? All those things will be there. Like the rate that the company like rate of earnings it is there. For example, rate of return on capital employed, rate of return on assets, all these things. For that you need to have the data. So most cases in these kind of investigation, they are more focused on the data and then on the calculation. First, they focus on the gathering of the correct data because it's a private limited company. Okay, you should have the access to the correct data. Tomorrow, once in these kind of scenario, what happens is when an investor wants to invest, the company may provide him 10 different information. But to verify whether that information is correct or not, you need an investigation at times. See, you might have an audited financial statement, that's another story. Okay, audited financial statement will give you the numbers, but sometimes they need more than that. Investors, how much prospective orders they have on the hand, what are their competitors, what are the complaints about their products. A lot of things are there that actually decides the profitability, the warranty, and all those things. And the basis of that, they adjust the valuation of the company. How much product is developed? What further development is required to understand the further cash outflow and to predict the further cash inflow? Dividends issued in past. All those things are there which are taken care when you do an investigation for the valuation of shares of private limited. Clear with this? Basically, a good understanding on the valuation of shares of private limited. Then comes the investigation on behalf of bank or FI before or when they are proposing to give a loan. Now, what happens in this particular scenario? Okay, see, whenever loans are being given, nowadays you have a CIBIL for loans which are being given. You can verify CIBIL. The people do CIBIL, check CIBIL and everything. But for the loans which are very big, where you have consortium of banks, where you are talking about very big projects, where you are talking about projects that are that require a huge loan. In those scenarios, what happens is the bank first appoints the investigator to check and to verify, okay, whether in actual that projects is of such nature where we can give the loan. Integrity, reputation, the cases on the project, whether the project has, for example, a lot of times, there are projects which are awarded by governments. Okay, and a lot of private companies try to obtain financial, assistance on those projects, and that is required also. But considering the risk involved, we have seen already in the NBFC chapter, like when it happens and when NPA happens, in that scenario, the provisioning and everything increases. So to avoid such kind of scenarios where the NPA doesn't happen, banks order investigation before only before awarding or before providing the loan, to make sure that the person, the project, or the scenario is of such nature where they can lend the amount and there is a lesser risk of NPA. The investigator goes on to the details of the project, what will be the cash outflow, inflow in the project, whether it is secured by any person guarantee, whether it is awarded by government, then what are the, sometimes there are exit clause or the termination clause in the project. Okay, and these clauses are sometimes very very critical, very you can say heavy. That means even if smallest issue in the quality, they may terminate the project without paying any amount. So these kind of termination clause becomes they creates a lot of risk within the project itself, and that becomes the risk then becomes very much critical for the banks and financial institution. And that's why they appoint charter accountants to investigate whether there are such clauses in the project, because whenever these financing on these projects are done, the person may provide the details, documents, everything, but it requires detailed study of those documents. It requires everything, agreements. If tomorrow, if that person is trying to hide something with respect to these kind of clauses, comments, or some conditions which are there in the agreement or which are part of the project tender, in that case, bank may face a lot of issues later on. So to avoid that, they hire chartered accountants to carry out these kind of investigations. Okay. Then you have basically investigation on behalf of individuals, investigation in connection with review of profit or financial forecast. So those are the investigation. But very important, I think you might have been waiting for this. Very important, which you see a lot of times that is being done, is investigation of frauds. Investigation of frauds. there is endless discussion I can do on this particular part. Investigation on frauds. Okay. Now, whenever there is a fraud investigation, you might have heard of fraud investigation. Whenever there is a fraud investigation, most of the times chartered accountants are hired to do fraud investigation. Okay. A lot of type of fraud investigation schemes are present. A lot of type of fraud investigation schemes. Basically, they are divided into 3 categories. And I'll explain you why 3 categories and what is the reason for that. One is a fraudulent financial reporting. Second is the misappropriation of assets. And third is the corruption. Okay. When I talk about fraudulent financial reporting, here the target is to window dress the financial reporting, to make sure that your financial statements appear very, very good. Your financial statements are of such nature that they should give a very good promising picture. They should give a picture like, okay, everything is good, company is doing excellent. That is the fraudulent financial reporting. And there are various investigation reports or investigation that happens in this particular scenario. You might have already seen a lot of news outside, notices being issued and all those stuff. But again, in these kind of scenarios, in these kind of situations, when there is a fraudulent financial reporting, the first thing is done is hire a good fraud investigator team, which is made up of chartered accountants, which is made up of people who know the financial reporting, who know how the financial reporting is done. And there is nothing, no one better than the chartered accountant in this kind of scenario. Like where, the people can understand what is wrong. Basically. Okay. So that is the first scenario, first thing you see when it comes to the fraud reporting. Second is misappropriation of asset. Now, what is misappropriation of asset and how it is different from fraudulent financial reporting? In case of misappropriation of asset, the target is not to window dress the financial statements or the financial reporting. That means here the target is not to show the profit 10x. No. Here the target is to hide things. They might show profit on a normal range, they might show losses also. But the target is the assets which are stolen from the company, the asset which are missing from the company. Now, asset can be cash, asset can be physical assets, inventories, missing data, a lot of things. But here the target is to hide those assets. It doesn't matter what is your outcome. Let's say, for example, after hiding the asset, still if the company shows loss, fine. But the target is to hide the asset. And that's why they are more onto the asset side. They focus more onto the asset, cash, inventory, data, and all that stuff, rather than the financial reporting to show the good picture. And the third one is the corruption. In case of the corruption, what happens is neither it's with respect to the financial reporting, neither it's with respect to the misappropriation of assets. In case of corruption, it is beyond the company. See, in case of financial reporting, you are trying to defraud the stakeholders or investors. In case of misappropriation of asset, you are trying to defraud the company itself. But in case of corruption, here the target is not to defraud the stakeholders or investors, not to defraud the company, but to make sure that you are getting additional benefit, you are getting a benefit for which the company is not authorized to receive, or the company would have not received if the corruption was not done. So at the end, it might be, the results might be in favor of the companies, but again, it is not something which is allowed. Sometimes corruption is kind of done against the interest of the company also. I'll explain how. Don't worry, we'll go on that particular part. Well, I'll explain you some of the schemes and how those investigations of fraud are done. But these are the three main categories when it comes to the fraudulent or investigation of the fraud. Clear till now? Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? See, you name it, then there will be an area where fraud can be done. With respect to the accounting entries, sales, data, expense, with respect to payroll, data, you name it, these kind of frauds can be done. There is no limit on the fraud and fraudulent schemes. Okay. So let's talk about some of the schemes so you guys can understand basically how these schemes work, what are the things to know for, or what are the things to understand in these kind of scenarios. Okay, and what are the things that as an investigator or as an investigation, what we need to take care of. Okay. For example, let's talk about a scenario where you have a fraudulent scheme with respect to maybe, for example, off-book fraud records, or you can say cash misappropriation. Best example, teaming and lending. Okay, let's talk about cash misappropriation. That is the second category, misappropriation of assets. So cash misappropriation means you record the cash in the books, but then somehow you take out the cash from the books of account. Now, whenever these kind of schemes are there, let's say, for example, we are talking about cash misappropriation. How will you identify these kind of cash misappropriation scheme? Let's say you are being appointed, there was a whistleblower. Someone in the company got a complaint, whistleblower complaint, that okay, someone is doing cash misappropriation in this particular department. Now the company has hired you as an investigator. Go and investigate. What you will do? What you will do? Come on, guys. So there's a cash misappropriation which is happening. Now you are being hired as an investigator, fraud investigator. Okay, based on some whistleblower complaint, you have to investigate into this particular cash misappropriation. How will you investigate? What you will do? Anyone?
रिकॉर्ड्स चेक करेंगे सेल्स के और परचेज के और सारे बिलिंग्स, पेरोल स्कीम्स और जितने भी एक्सपेंसेस हैं, जो भी कैश बुक्स के आइटम्स हैं, उनको हम चेक करेंगे.
ओके.
एंड ओपनिंग बैलेंस करेक्टली रिटर्न डाउन है कि नहीं है वो भी चेक करेंगे.
ओके.
कहीं डबल एंट्री नहीं हो गई हो किसी भी एक्सपेंस की, वो भी चेक करेंगे. किसी से कोई रिफंड अगर आना था तो वो रिफंड रिसीव हुआ है, वो भी चेक करेंगे. कोई सेल से डेटर से कलेक्शन हो गया है, कंप्लीटली कलेक्शन पीरियड कंप्लीट हो गया, तो अगेंस्ट उसके मनी रिसीव हुआ है और उसकी रिसीविंग की एंट्री बैंक एंड कैश दोनों में चेक करेंगे. एंड कोई भी ऐसा जो एक्सपेंस जो ऑथराइज्ड नहीं है उसको मैनेजमेंट से पहले सॉरी उसको पहले मैनेजमेंट से कंफर्म करेंगे. एंड कोई ऑल्टर किया है किसी भी जगह किसी एक्सपेंस को, लाइक 500 के एक्सपेंस था और 5000 उसको कर दिया, तो वो भी हम सबसे पहले चेक करेंगे.
ओके. यस, वेरी गुड. Anything else you might think that you will do? Anyone? What else you can check when it comes to the misappropriation?
सर, और कोई ऐसी ट्रांजैक्शन है जो शेल कंपनी बनाकर करी गई है, मतलब जो ओनली फॉर सेविंग ऑफ टैक्स और सम अदर रीजन, पर्सनल गेन, लाइक, तो वो भी हम चेक करेंगे कि कुछ ट्रांजैक्शन एक्चुअली हैपेंड और इट्स ओनली जस्ट बाय ट्रांसफरिंग ऑफ मनी, लाइक.
Yes, absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Anyone else with respect to any other thing that they will check when it comes to the cash misappropriation? No? Okay. See, when it comes to the cash misappropriation, what I will do basically as an investigator, first of all, we need to understand few things, that from where the cash misappropriation is happening on. Either I am not recording the cash receipts or I am making the excess payments. So what is the way? First of all, I need to understand where this is basically getting impacted. That means what is the area? Either it is with the cash inflow or cash outflow where the cash has been misappropriated. Okay. Once I identify that, then I will perform the next procedure. Then I will perform the next things to understand. Okay, now I understood whether it is being done at the start or at the end. Now what I will do is I will go and I will check how it is done. Okay. Basically, if I have to check, let's say for example, cash receipts. So if I have to check that, okay, whether cash receipts are being misappropriated, simple thing is I may check with respect to the receipts issued with the amount collected. Okay, sometimes you have the receipt issued with the amount collected, or for example, you may have customer payments not being received, but in actual customers might have given you the payments. So those, like they collect the cash but do not pass the entry in the books of accounts. In that case, when you send out your confirmation statements, at that time also you come to know whether the customer paid in cash or not. Sometimes the customer pay in the cash, in the check, but somehow the employees are in a such a position that they misappropriate the check. For example, you know a lot of times, in a fraudulent scheme, what happens is employees, let's say there is a trade receivable employee. What he did is, let's say there is a company. I'll show you with an example. Let's say there is a company, X Limited. Okay. What they will do is, like there is a trade receivable employee and there is a customer, that is ABC. Now this trade receivable employee will send email to customer ABC that the company's bank account name has changed. Okay, company's bank account name has changed from X Limited to something very similar. If the company's name is X this limited, then they may add small word change. For example, they may add X India Limited to show that this is in now India company, basically something like that. Okay, they will send email to the ABC customer. Now ABC customer will receive, okay, fine, the company's name has changed, no issues, we will issue check with the new name. And this email is sent one-on-one, means no other employee of the company is being marked. This employee will start new company, that is, or he will go and he will open bank account with the new name and the new company, that is X India Private Limited or Limited, whatever it is. Okay, he will incorporate another company with this new name and he will open a bank account with that. And when customer ABC will issue the check, now if there are issues in the control, means there is no segregation of duty, or somehow the treasury department who is receiving the cash or check is somehow linked to the trade payable employee, he will pass the check to this particular employee and then employee will get deposited in this account and the money will go out of the company. These kind of schemes are happening. These kind of fraud also happen. So not only cash misappropriation means actual cash going out of the company. No, it times with the banks also. Sometimes what they do is, if the company is on to e-payments, not also the checks, but the e-payments. What they will do is, along with the name, they will give the new account. Now more issue, because now there will be no physical movement of check. So the treasury department might even not come into the picture. Directly customer will issue the payment into the new account from the with the new name of the bank account name. So it will directly now go to this company, e-payment. So no one will ever come to know that, okay, there was a change, whether the change is genuine or not, because he will send it from the official mail ID of the company. That's why in these kind of scenarios, strict controls, or there are scenarios where, the company has the policies which are already communicated to the customers, or if such thing is happening, in that case, investigators have a role to play. That, okay, what they do is, in a lot of companies, when they hire the investigators, fraud investigators, basically, they are given access to all the emails, even the emails which are there in this employee's mailbox. They have these backend support softwares where they get all the data and then they perform investigations using that data based on the softwares and the tools. They go through all the emails to identify such scenarios, anything such written in the email, even though sent one-on-one. And then that becomes very important, to understand, okay, whether such kind of email was sent. If yes, then they collect the evidence, they collect the details, and accordingly they, proceed in that direction. So there was one of the case where what happens is, now I'll shift to the another example of the fraud investigation, which is not onto the cash part, but this is more onto the, you can say, ledger balance, okay, or you can say customer ledger, customer contracts, or something like that. It involved a lot of things, lot of people into it. Okay. So basically, what was happened is, let's say there was X Limited, there was a sales team of X Limited, there was a customer, ABC Limited customer. Now, one employee from the sales team, reach out to, here there was a procurement team of ABC Limited. Now reach out to one of the employees in the procurement team of ABC Limited. What they do is, like, he asked, okay, you give me an order, don't pay the amount, just give me an order. Okay, what I will do is I'll book all these orders in my company. So procurement team just has to give the order, that's it. No payment is required to be done. Just give me an email that, okay, you are willing to buy these kind of things and everything, and I'll book these orders in my system. So from here, a lot of orders, let's say I'll give you a rough amount. Okay, so rough amount, you can say, of rupees 500 crores, something like that, was order which flew from procurement team to the X Limited through this one employee. Okay, so they gave all this order to this one employee basically. Then this one employee basically booked those orders. Okay, and what happened is, there are sales incentive. So he got a very good amount of sales incentive. Let's say, in lakhs or something like that. 50% of that sales incentive was given to this procurement guy over here in return. Okay, 50% was kept by this employee, 50% was given to this procurement guy, and this was keep going on. But at the end, what was happening is, there was a pile up of the orders for which there was no delivery happening, no payment happening. The orders were coming. There was good orders that were supposed to be fulfilled, but there was no movement on those orders. And then they, try to bring more people into that, more different kind of fraud companies and all that stuff. And there was a very big scheme where there was fraudulent booking of orders, and the salespersons were getting incentives. Those incentives were in turn shared with the procurement team of the other companies who were giving the fraudulent orders. And sometimes even, they were making sure also the company pays the amount. So kind of, it was a combination of the fraudulent booking, okay, fraudulent transactions with respect to that, plus corruption, because they are getting the illegal gratuity and the bribery, the procurement team. And here the employee, he was doing the basically fraudulent, sales order booking to get the more incentive. So in these kind of scenarios, as an investigator, our role is first to understand the scheme, to gather the information, like what is actually happening on the ground, how the fraud is being done, whether the fraud is being done by inflating the cash payments, whether it is done by, hiding the cash receipts, what is the actual scenario that is happening on the ground, how the fraud is there, whether, adjusting cash sale against the credit, or what is actually happening on. And then on the basis of that, okay, on the basis of that, we need to proceed ahead for the collection of the evidence. It could be inventory fraud, where employees may simply remove the goods from premises. Yes, they happen. Then in the inventory count, we might not able to identify there is a discrepancy. What was the standard where in the audit we were talking about inventory count? Quickly, the standard on the inventory count that we discussed in the audit. Come on, guys. Anyone? Standard that we discussed, auditing standard that we discussed when it comes to the inventory, auditing the inventory.
Sir, ऐसे 500 series का
Which one?
510.
No. Very good, Manish.
Exactly.
Not 510. There is some other standard. And what we were doing in that? Come on, guys. Come on, quickly. So, what we were doing in that? Anyone? Very good, Manish. Yes. Very good, Sanjana. Yes. So, what was the requirement under that particular standard? Yes, Manish. Very good. What was the yes?
Sir, physical inventory counting.
Yes, absolutely correct.
Or
And
मतलब appoint a auditor or something, somebody else in place of auditor to attend the physical count when it happened.
okay. But what was the main thing in that particular what you say standard? What was the main role? Very good, Kirti. Okay, I'll tell you. No issues. So basically, it was SA 501, where we were supposed to verify existence and the condition of the inventory by performing the inventory count, by checking whether the inventory count that is being performed by the management, plus we were also supposed to perform inventory count. Yes or no? Inventory valuation, that how inventory is being valued.
Yes, sir.
So
where it is used.
yes, absolutely. So now in those scenarios, let's say for example, we also discussed, remember that in such a kind of scenario, that when inventory count is performed, there are scenarios where you could identify discrepancies in the inventory count. Yes or no? There were some scenarios where we were identifying discrepancies in the inventory count.
Yes, sir.
Now, at that point in time, that discrepancy basically, could be resultant or due to fraud. If there is an underlying fraud, in that case, there could be, discrepancy, and that is required to be basically understood in such a way. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
Let's say, for example, there was a warehouse. Someone from the warehouse, started taking out the goods. Okay. either the warehouse is basically, warehouse is basically, is under control of the warehouse manager, but some employee started taking out the goods from the warehouse. Now, what will happen is at the end of the time of the inventory count, if the goods are not material, usually companies, they what they do is, okay, there's a discrepancy in the count, there could be here and there, and that's why let's do one thing, let's ignore the discrepancy and let's book in the directly book of accounts. Okay, they will book the provision like inventory lost, whatever it is. But there are further big inventory frauds that may happen. Big inventory frauds. For example, I'll give you one example that we saw personally. Okay, let's say there was a warehouse A and warehouse B. Now, usually what happens is there are insurance in, for the, if there is a good movement from the factory to the warehouse or from one warehouse to another warehouse, there are insurance involved. So let's say there was a warehouse A where goods were supposed to be transferred to warehouse B. That was a routine activity because this warehouse was near to manufacturing unit. So after manufacturing, all the goods were going to this warehouse, and then to supply in the other regions, they supposed to transfer in warehouse B. Now, one employee from warehouse team, okay, reach out to the driver of transport service provider, basically, who was supposed to transfer the goods. So he reached out to that transport driver. What he asked that driver is that let's do one thing, from going to this warehouse A to warehouse B. Okay, what you need to do is you need to stop at this point. My team, like, the known person of this employee will come and change the parts with substandard quality. Okay, either they will change the whole product with the substandard quality, or they will change the genuine parts with the substandard parts. And then what you do is you will be given some amount, and then you continue and deliver those goods to the warehouse people. So these kind of schemes were happening. And when at warehouse B, usually what happens is from one warehouse to another warehouse, there was a lack of controls at the end. Means there was no inspection of goods once it reached to the warehouse B, because they were understanding, no, this is coming from warehouse A. It is being, packed, and it is something like, not touched by anyone because of the outer condition. But this employee had knowledge that how to repack the goods in the similar way, the way it was done in the warehouse. And that's why for a very long time, they never came to know about these kind of scenarios till the time there was a whistleblower by the this driver. Like something is happening on the route with those goods. So inventory fraud is a very big, again, very critical area where employees might simply remove the goods, tap up the goods, inventory records might be manipulated, quantities might be changed, inflated, or something, some different things can be done. So in that case, very big issues can arise. And that's why when fraud investigation happens with respect to the inventory, you should have that detail available. You should be able to understand the scheme. Sometimes, the very big challenge in the fraud investigation, personally, is to understand and identify the fraud schemes. It's not that much easy that I'm telling you over here, like, with the help of chart, you are able to understand. But when you go for actual fraud investigation, at that point in time, identification of the schemes becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult to identify whether it's an actual fraud or it is something else. Sometimes it may happen that, there was a manufacturing defect or the at the time of the manufacturing itself, the product that was installed in that particular, good was of substandard quality. It was changed before the manufacturing. So company was purchasing standard quality of parts for the goods, but before manufacturing, someone was changing the standard quality with the substandard quality, or it is happening on the route, or it is happening after reaching the warehouse B. So a lot of things are required to be considered whether actually anything is happening or not. For that, you need to pick up some goods from the warehouse B. And by the time you pick up the goods from the warehouse B, if some employee comes to know in the warehouse A, or the actual, the people who are doing fraud, they come to know from the warehouse A, they, just resign and they just vanish. So it has to be done so carefully sometimes that, even no one comes to, no one gets aware about that actually investigation is happening on. Because the moment you disclose the investigation is happening, people might try to cover up everything, they vanish, employees resigns, and then it becomes very difficult to actually get the evidence of the investigation. Yes, Katie. Yes, sometimes banks also, ask chartered accountants to do investigation with respect to, sometimes if they have, doubt that, okay, the fraudulent stock reporting is being done, they might also give the order to do the stock audit. But if there is a very big case, they have very, good doubt about the company that there is something fraudulent going on with the stock reporting, stock statements, they may ask, chartered accountant to do a fraud investigation over there. So always and always we have to look for the red flags. Now, in all those scenarios, there is something common that we need to understand. There is something common. I'll take this particular example. Okay, this one, procurement one. There is something common in all the scenarios that we need to understand. Number one is, if you compare this particular scenario, sales one, if you compare with this manufacturing scenario, what do you see a common thing in these both?
Employee. One employee.
Employee, yes. What else is there? There is something without which these schemes were not possible.
So not having proper authorization or delegation of duties कह सकते हैं इसको, क्योंकि only single person have all powers to issue.
Like no quality inspection was happening on, or there was no segregation of duty, means the person who was dispatching the goods from warehouse, there was no one checking in warehouse B, or there was a weakness in the controls. Inspection was not done appropriately. Yes or no? Over here also there was a weakness that open orders were not looked upon. Otherwise, they would have come to know, like there was a sales incentive based on the order, not on the actual sales. So there was a weakness in the controls. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So on both places, we could identify there is some weakness of which someone knew about. What is the second thing you find over here? Common. What is the second common thing you identify over here? Come on, guys. Think of it. What is the second common thing you can understand from this particular two examples? Why it is being done? why it is being done. Anyone?
सर फर्स्ट वाले पार्ट में तो कमीशन स्कीम इज वन ऑफ द रीजन बिकॉज जिसके ये फ्रॉड हुआ एंड द सेकंड वन इस सेकंड वन में सर समझ नहीं आ रहा, पर्सनल गेन या कुछ भी कह सकते हो आप उसको.
They might be selling the parts and then they were getting the amount.
यस सर.
Yeah. So there was a gain involved. So in both cases, there was a gain involved. Either incentives was a gain, or here this particular selling of parts was gain. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So one thing we could understand was the weakness. Second thing we could understand was the gain. What is the third thing do you think, that is relevant over here? That is particularly, the similarity in both of the scenarios. You just now said that one employee. Yes, that one employee who was involved in these frauds was able to do that. Okay. So he was able to conduct the fraud. He was able to carry out the fraud. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So this one employee was able to do fraud. Now, if I talk about these three things over here, weakness, able to do fraud, and your gain. From these three things, we can, come out with a particular model of the fraud. I'll tell you how. The first thing is gain. Whenever there is a fraud, there is always a gain behind it. That is, we call an incentive. Second, whenever there is a fraud, there is a weakness behind it. Otherwise, they would have not be able to carry out that fraud. Weakness could be in your internal controls, in your processes, wherever there could be a weakness. We call this as an opportunity. There was an opportunity to carry out the fraud. Third was that the person, that employee was able to do fraud. Now, how anyone can able to, see, there could be 10 different employees. Why only this one employee was able to do fraud? There were two reasons behind it. One was your capability. That employee could think that no, I can exploit. See, there could be incentive, there could be opportunity, but till the time person can think that how he can utilize the opportunity to gain the incentive, he cannot do the fraud. He has to have that much capability to think that okay, no, there is an opportunity, I should utilize this to get the incentive. Then only he will be able to conduct the fraud. So capability is very important part. Yes or no? And then the next part, which is very important, is the rationalization. The question is, not everyone conducts the fraud, even though they are aware about the opportunity. You might be aware about the opportunity, but you will not conduct the fraud. That's a rationalization. That is something, the inner voice, that is the behavior, that is the ethics that we follow. You have to convince yourself that you have to do fraud. There is no other way out, or it's rational to do fraud. Yes or no? So these four elements make the fraud happen. Whenever these four elements are present, you will get a fraud. So that's why it is known as fraud diamond theory. Basically, fraud diamond theory is kind of a theory which talks about these four, you can say, factors or elements of fraud: incentive, opportunity, rationalization, and capability. Earlier, there was fraud triangle that we used to study where the capability was not part of it, but now capability is considered one of the part or extension of the fraud triangle theory. So if you talk about fraud triangle, it was this part. This was for fraud triangle, the incentive opportunity rationalization. But when you added a fourth element to that triangle, it became the fraud diamond. That is, without capability, you cannot use all the three things. And when you have all the four things, there is a fraud. That is a fraud diamond theory. Clear with this? Any doubt? Any doubt with respect to the fraud diamond?
Sir, can you explain rationalization again?
Rationalization means, if I say, okay, let's talk about your scenario. If I tell you, okay, Monica, you have this opportunity available. There is an opportunity. There is a weakness in internal controls. There is a incentive. If you utilize this opportunity, this weakness, you might get a personal gain. And I'll tell you also that, okay, how to do this kind of schemes. Will you still go and carry out the fraud? Answer is no. Because we don't think that is right. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So in that case, the thinking process that you say that this is not right, that we should not do fraud, rather we should go to the company and tell them there's a weakness in the internal control. That is rationalization. Otherwise,
Sir.
what would have happened that every internal auditor who knows about the weakness would be a fraudulent guy. Just because of the rationalization, they are aware about the weakness. Instead of utilizing that weakness, they report it in their audit report. Clear?
Clear, sir.
Any doubt till now? Any doubt with respect to any of the part?
No, sir.
Okay. If no doubt, let's do one thing. Let's take a quick 10-minute break. After the break, we'll gather back and continue the session. Okay. Let's take a quick 10-minute break. Continue the session. So we were talking about, before the break, we talked about the investigation, various types of investigation, statutory, non-statutory. Then we saw fraud investigation. We saw certain examples of the fraud investigation. We also saw about the fraud diamond theory, that the four elements should be there in order to create or the environment for the fraud. So that was more onto the investigation side. Okay. Now, we will discuss one important topic, that is forensic accounting. Okay, forensic accounting. We will understand what is forensic accounting and what is the, basically requirement of forensic accounting. Can anyone tell me what they understand when it comes to the forensic accounting? What do you mean by forensic accounting? Anyone? What is forensic accounting? Can anyone tell me? I think you guys either not gone through the study material or something that act as a proof in the court. Yes, very good, Sanjana. Yes, absolutely correct. Anyone else? Forensic accounting? No?
सीरियस फ्रॉड्स के केस में फॉरेंसिक अकाउंटिंग होती है, लाइक क्राइम वगैरह कुछ होता है तो.
Okay. Yes. So, when I talk about forensic accounting, okay, there are two important things we need to understand and why it is being different than the fraud investigation. How it is, different than the fraud investigation, or rather, I can say extension of that. See, when I say forensic accounting, first of all, the term forensic is used whenever the outcome of that particular activity is used as a, in court of law. Am I not audible? Am I audible to you guys? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I just got a message. I think, Kirti, then I would suggest check at your end, because I'm audible to other guys, other people in the session. Okay, so what I was talking about, whenever the term forensic comes into the picture, basically that evidence, that outcome of the activity will be used in the court of law. Till the time, whatever we discussed, did I discuss that at the end it went into the litigation in court? Answer is no. Investigation, I was talking about, someone hires us, we did the investigation, we then prepared the report and reported to the concerned party or the company or whosoever appointed us. But we never discussed about going into the litigation. Now the term forensic, when it comes to into the discussion, that means that this particular outcome will be used in court of law as evidence. That means I am from day one sure that this will end up into a litigation. This will end up into a court of law, this matter. And when I have to collect that outcome based on the accounting, that becomes forensic accounting. That means when I talk about forensic accounting, that is, I am basically gathering the accounting evidence. Okay, the outcome over here is related to accounting. It could be evidence, it could be calculation, it could be analysis, all those things. It could be investigation. When I do evidence collection, when I do calculations, when I do analysis, investigation, and that outcome, if I prepare in such a way that it is valid in the court of law, that is forensic accounting. Clear with this? Any doubt?
Sir, forensic accounting does not only mean with court ना, like RBI ने करवाई है किसी क्राइम के केस में, फाइनेंशियल क्राइम के केस में, so that time we have to report to RBI ना.
RBI, no. No.
सर जस्ट लाइक सत्यम या अदर केसेस जो हुए थे उनमें कोर्ट के पहले मैटर आने से पहले, मतलब आई मीन जो अगर ऐसा कुछ ऐसा अभी फ्यूचर में भी अगर कोई हो तो वो सारे केसेस के लिए पहले आरबीआई खुद कंडक्ट करवाती है, जो वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन है. दिस इज नॉट द फोरेंसिक, राइट?
See, now I'll explain. Whenever we are talking about fraud investigation, okay, again, in a simple terms, investigation is different. Forensic accounting is different. Now, when investigation becomes part of forensic accounting, if the outcome of the investigation, when you want to use in the court of law, see, tomorrow, let's say I did this investigation, this particular investigation, that I identified this person or the driver is stopping here, employee is getting warehouse B before warehouse B. I did all this investigation, I prepared the report and submitted the report to company. Do you think I can enforce this report in the court of law? Do you think this report will be acceptable?
No sir, but when RBI is a legal body, right? वो अगर हमें अपॉइंट कर रही है एज अ फॉरेंसिक ऑडिटर एंड तो देन वी हैव टू रिपोर्ट आरबीआई फॉर दैट फैक्ट्स एंड जो भी हमें फाइंडिंग्स हुई हैं वो सब कुछ, या फिर डायरेक्टली हमें कोर्ट में ही सब करना है, उसी आरबीआई को करना पड़ेगा ना पहले. एंड आरबीआई डिसाइड मतलब कि क्या उनको लिटिगेशन में रखना है और क्या नहीं रखना.
That is another story. Again, that's why I think that is another story. So when you do investigation for RBI, that is investigation, fraud investigation. When it goes for a dispute, a litigation, at that time, again, the collection of evidence, even, what happens is analysis of that fraud investigation report, collecting more evidence, and then preparing a forensic report that is then being submitted to the court. So your fraud investigation report may not directly go to the court of law. Because, yes, you're saying something? Because at the end, what may happen is your investigation report, see, in court, whenever there is a case going on, okay, for any of the thing. So there are questions, there are, like there are some pleadings which are being done. So some pleadings might have been done, some grounds might have been set up for the appeal or for something. And on the basis of that, each party or whether it's a plaintiff or it's a defendant, they have to submit the evidence in relation to those pleadings or in relation to those particular matters that are reported in that suit or in the case. Okay. Your investigation report might not be sufficient to be given directly. That's why sometimes when a forensic report is prepared, they might take reference of your fraud investigation report. and they will prepare accordingly that it becomes as an admissible evidence in the court of law.
Okay, sir.
That's why forensic accounting is sometimes, you might have seen that, fraud investigation is part of forensic accounting, but it is not forensic accounting. Forensic accounting is something different. Forensic accounting basically is collecting the evidence with respect to, the matter which is related to the accounting, and then on the basis of that, presenting that outcome in the court of law. If I give you an example, okay, let's say, for example, there was a particular company. Now there are, let's say, for example, there are two particular companies are there. They were involved into a particular what do you say, contract. Okay, they were involved into a particular contract. Now because of they were involved into a particular contract, there is a dispute with respect to a contract. There's a very big dispute going on. So let's say, for example, X Limited, Y Limited, they started a joint venture for XY Limited. Okay, now this is doing loss. This is doing loss where it was supposed to do profit. Now Y Limited wants to file a case on X Limited with respect to improper handling of business. Okay, with respect to improper handling of business. For that, they might hire forensic accounting person, or forensic guy who will do forensic accounting. He will collect the details from here. He will prepare the report which will be filed with the case. Are you getting the point? It's not always about fraud. It's beyond fraud. It's analysis, it's calculations, it's a lot of things involved in this to understand the proper accounting thing, and that should be acceptable in the court of law at the end. Sometimes there are huge complex accounting transactions. Huge complex accounting transactions. For example, this JV. Let's say there is some other entity also involved which is outside India who has invested in JV as an FDI. Now there is something issue with the profit sharing. There is some issue with some acquisition. Now this JV wants to acquire some other entity. How goodwill will be segregated, disputes are happening, contracts are there. So it's beyond fraud, but it's more onto the litigation side. Here data analysis happens, like operational review, cost accounting analysis. People might be taken on oath, evidence might be collected. We will do the same. We will collect the details the way we have collected in the investigation. But at the end, our focus will be that at each and every phase, whenever the evidence will be collected, a thing will be remembered that at the end, this is going to end up in the litigation. That means whatever evidence we are collecting right now for the forensic reporting, forensic accounting reporting, okay, that evidence should be admissible in the court of law. It's not like that, okay, I met a person, that person told me, I wrote in the report, done. No, these kind of hearsay things will not be admissible in the court of law. That's why it requires a specific skill, that how at the end forensic accounting is done. chartered accountants nowadays are becoming expert in forensic accounting. They are being hired for this. They prepare the report and they become expert, whose report is then admitted in the court of law. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Any doubt? No? Okay. Okay. Now, fraud investigation, you can say it's a subset of this forensic accounting, but it's not forensic accounting. Okay. That's why it's more wider in terms and aspects. Now, the way we have seen fraud investigation, in a similar way, there could be some scenarios where these kind of engagements are given under the court of law or under the laws and regulations. Okay. For example, there could be specific laws. I think there are some provisions in the IBC law also, which requires that to carry out this forensic accounting. Okay, forensic auditing or something like that. Where chartered accountants are hired who are specialized in this field, and they carry out the particular forensic accounting, and they then submit the report. So yes, chartered accountants are involved in this, and that's why it's a very very, you can say, specialized field. So what we will do is we will understand how this is done, how this is carried out on ground. Okay, so that we can get a good example, like good understanding of the topic. Okay, now basically, let's say for example, I'll give you one example and we will see how it is actually carried out on ground. So let's say there are two companies. I'll just give you just a minute. Let me bring that example. Sorry, just a minute. Okay, so let's say there are two companies basically. Okay, so there is one Alpha Corp, one Beta Incorporation. Okay, they formed a joint venture called Gamma Company. Now, the role of the company was basically to market a new software. Okay, to develop a new software. So for that, basically there was a profit sharing agreement, 60% to Alpha Corp and 40% to Beta. However, somehow in agreement there was a not a clear cut guidelines were given regarding the treatment of these certain expenses, specifically to research and development cost and marketing expense, that these company will do to market and to build this new software. Okay, so Alpha Corp was of the opinion that R&D cost should be capitalized and amortized over the product's lifespan. Okay, this will reduce the expense in the initial year and higher profits later on. But Beta was of the opinion that no, these are required to be expensed out immediately. There is no basically capitalization required, and there was a disagreement between them. Okay, with respect to marketing expense and software development and research and development expense, and that's why they hire a forensic accountant basically to provide an independent analysis to help resolve this dispute. Okay, now what a forensic accountant will do? If let's say I ask you, let's say you are forensic accountant in this particular case, what you will be doing? What your responsibility will be? Let's say this is going on a litigation in the court of law. what will be your approach to this particular part? Come on, guys. Anyone? No? Okay. Basically, what I will do as in forensic accounting guy in this scenario is my approach will be first of all to discover the fact and to identify what is my objective. Usually, when you do an audit, your objective is to issue opinion. Here, my objective will be to discover the facts and evidence. So at the end, I have to discover the facts. What are the facts? What are the evidence to this particular event? Because at the end, I need to specify that whether the event or whether whatever thing which is in dispute is present or not. Okay. So the objective here will be discover facts, and evidence. Now my focus will be on this transaction only. I will not do all detailed audit, all accounting records and everything. No, I know where the issue lies. I know why I am being hired over here. What facts and evidence I need to look into. That's why I was saying it could be different from fraud investigation, because in fraud investigation, you might not have all the details ready available in your hand. In forensic accounting, there could be scenarios where you might have all the details, your scope well defined, that what you have to do, which fact you are looking for. In fraud investigation, there could be a scenario, let's say, okay, oh, there could be a fraud. Which fraud? Don't know. How much amount? Don't know. Whether actually fraud is there or not? No, don't know. But here, it could be, okay, there is a dispute, there is a joint venture agreement that you need to look into, and then you need to decide what would be the correct treatment of this particular expense. Because in certain, like, let's say, for example, this particular part, you might be saying, oh, it's just expense related, but no. Expense will decide the profitability. Profitability will decide the dividends, the profit sharing at the end. So this profitability will be very critical, because at the end, whatever profit will be, it will be distributed as the dividends. So if, let's say, Beta Incorp wins, there will be lower profits, so lower dividend to Alpha Incorporation in initial years. So there could be a huge dispute out of here, huge dispute, trust me. And that's why you need to understand what are the facts and evidence of the case. Then your scope will be narrow to that. That is transaction based. Transaction or event that is happening over here. Now, my approach, how will I carry out this particular accounting, forensic accounting engagement? I may review the joint venture agreement. So as a forensic accountant, I will carefully review the joint venture agreement. I will look for any clauses that are related to expense treatment, accounting standards, or dispute resolutions. Yes, it's, let's say, for example, there is no clause on the treatment of expenditure. I will go to accounting standards. Let's say there is accounting standard silent on that particular part. In that case, I will look into what are the dispute resolution mechanism, what are the accounting practice being followed in both of the companies, what is the accounting practice being followed in the industry, whether it could be a scenario, let's say, for example, Alpha Corp could be from, let's say, this is foreign company. Okay. So this could be from the foreign company. For example, hypothetical example. Let's say this is also from same foreign company, a foreign country. They both together started this company in India. Now again, because Gamma company is an Indian company, the jurisdiction for the laws and for the disputes becomes India. Okay, so all the disputes are then are subject to the Indian laws and regulations and Indian courts. So let's say there is a dispute going on in India. Now, what is the practice that they both follow in their countries? What is usually practiced? A lot of things are there involved in that. So I'll do the review of joint venture agreement and the disputes and the practices that are being followed. Number 2, industry analysis. So as a forensic accountant, I will do a research of accounting practices within the software industry, particularly concerning the treatment of R&D and marketing cost. Okay, I will gather information on how similar companies handle these kind of scenarios. I will go for then financial modeling. Financial modeling of the both of the interpretations. What if, let's say, for example, if I go with one interpretation, what is the outcome? If I go with the other interpretation, what is the outcome and what are the financial consequences for that? Whether those financial consequences are allowed by the joint venture agreement or not. So let's say, for example, joint venture agreement says you cannot capitalize cost more than this. You have to charge off. Unless and until not allowed by the accounting standard. So you need to see what is the outcome, whether it is allowed by the joint venture agreement or not. These kind of scenarios you need to look into the financial outcome of that. As an expert, you need to provide your opinion based on the facts. So at the end, I will provide my opinion, the outcome of that report. I will provide this outcome of this particular part as an opinion, expert opinion. And then that expert opinion, with all the evidence, with all the analysis, with all the collections, go to the court of law. That is my approach in case of forensic accounting. At the end, I need to either identify or confirm whether that has happened or not. So approach will be basically focused, you can say, on that particular transaction. And when I talk about target or outcome, it is my confirmation or opinion. See, at times, confirmation is not possible that, whether the transaction has happened or not, whether it is allowed or not in a simple plain words. That's why at that time, opinion comes into the picture. So these are the certain things, which are there, and then your outcome, whatever outcome is there, is presented as an evidence. So this becomes your evidence for court. Clear with this? Yes, no? Again, one of very big example is a asset tracing. In case of shell companies or group of shell companies or structure of shell companies or money laundering, asset tracing or money laundering or, tracing the money becomes very important. At that time also, someone who can, trace the amount or the money or the assets, okay, and then can prepare the report with the evidence and which is acceptable in the court of law. For that, you need a specialized forensic accounting guy. Okay. So chartered accountants nowadays are expanding and they are becoming expert in this. They were expert, but now more and more people are going into this particular field. So it's a very, very great area to build your careers, but again that requires specific skills, understanding of this particular area. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you want to be a forensic accountant guy, you have to you need those specific skills, highly specialized skills that you can basically you need to have the understanding of the forensic process, how to collect the evidence, but at the same time, you need to make sure that evidence is enforceable or admissible in the court of law. And at the end, after this outcome, your role doesn't close over here. After the outcome, what you need to do is, in most of the forensic accounting case, testimony. Testimony, basically, you present yourself, you present in the court of law, and you testify as a witness that, okay, this is the investigation or this is the analysis you have done, this is the outcome of the analysis, and why do you believe that this is the correct way. So over there, you present yourself as the expert witness. That's why I said at the end, it will always end up in the litigation. That's why when I talk about step-by-step approach, like how the forensic accounting is done or the assignment is done, the last step is court proceedings, for sure. Any doubt? Any doubt, guys? Okay. If no doubt, can anyone tell me the step-by-step process of forensic accounting, the way we identify and audit, step-by-step process, like, planning, risk assessment, then evidence collection, analysis of evidence, reporting, okay, all those steps. So can you explain step-by-step process of forensic accounting? Can anyone do that? If you have no doubts, if you understood the particular concept, I hope then you can able to provide the answer. Come on, guys. Yes, Jenny, very good. Sanjana, I'll take up your question after step-by-step approach to explain you why I'm using the term accounting, not auditing. Come on, guys. What is the step-by-step approach? What is the step-by-step approach for the forensic accounting engagement? Come on, quickly. What is the step-by-step approach? I think you can now answer it very easily because we have discussed in detail. Okay, very good, Jenny. What else? Very good, Sanjana. Yes, good. Okay, let me tell you then. See, basically, when I talk about forensic accounting, okay, the first part is always and always initialization or pre-planning, that you say, taking up the engagements, or agreeing to the terms of the engagement, all those things are, we call it initialization here. Okay, but in actual it is the same, that you understand that okay, we agree the terms, we define what is required to be done, understanding the scope, objective of the engagement. Basically it's the initialization. Now when I talk about initialization, okay, like over there I can, I understand my objective, scope and everything. Now the first question I have for you guys is, can forensic accountant be an employee of company? Yes or no? Can a forensic accountant guy be an employee of the company? Yes, no, quickly guys. Initialization is the first step, but my first question is, can a forensic accountant guy be an employee of the company? Anyone? No? Okay. Why so? If no, then why so? If yes, then like, is there any thought process behind it? If you can explain. Very good, Sanjana. Yes. Very good. So, if I talk about, can a forensic accountant employee be an employee of a company? In most of the cases, answer is no. In most of the cases, answer is no. And the reason for that is the independence involved into it. Okay. At a lot of places, the forensic accountant has to prove that he is neutral, independent in mind, in conduct. He is free from any undue influence. Okay. He is free from any conflict of interest. That's why where he can be accepted as an expert witness. To get an accepted as an expert witness, you have to demonstrate yourself as an independent guy. So conflict check is the first and foremost thing when these kind of assignments come into the picture. So basically, if you talk about all the principles, fundamental principles which you have discussed: independence, integrity, objectivity, due care, confidentiality, skills, all those things are followed in the way that are there, like basically they were supposed to be followed. Then only you can call yourself as an independent. So very, very critical part, that in initialization you do a conflict check, and if you are independent, you will carry out the assignment. The next step basically is to develop the plan. Basically, the planning part that you have seen till now, you develop the plan by understanding what is your objective and what is your scope. Okay. Then, after developing a plan, you go for collection of evidence. Here you collect the proof of occurrence of event, evidence, investigation might be there, might not be there. You might collect some, documents, some contracts, whatever it is. And a very important concept that comes into the picture when the collection of evidence is done is, you might have heard, might not have heard. but it's a very, very important concept, or it's a very important part when it comes to the collection of evidence. Chain of custody. I'm just telling you for your information. Do you know what is chain of custody? Anyone? Anyone? Chain of custody? No? Not have heard about this term?
सर
Mm-hmm.
नॉट हर्ड बट नेम से यानी जो मैं समझ पा रही हूँ वो बोलना चाहूंगी.
Yeah.
जो भी एविडेंस कलेक्ट हुए हैं वो किन किन यानी पर्सन्स के कस्टडी में रहेंगे.
Okay. Something similar, but not exactly. Okay, I'll tell you, no issues. Basically, chain of custody talks about from where to where the evidence was moving, or let's say for example a contract. So chain of custody will talk about, okay, I collected the contract from this person, then from this to this person, from this to this person. The chain is available, just like your audit trail. A trail is available, and what changes were made by which person to that particular evidence is also available. So when you maintain chain of custody, then only the evidence is admissible in the court of law. Otherwise, I cannot, the court might not allow this evidence to be admitted. If I can demonstrate the agreement was obtained from this person, he was authorized keeper of the agreement. Okay, I have the proof to demonstrate that this was the keeper and he handed over me the evidence. And since then the evidence or the agreement is with me, the evidence can be accepted. And if I demonstrate, okay, this is the proof that it has not been tempered, changed, or anything, at that point in time, I can say this, the chain of custody has been maintained. So collection of evidence with the chain of custody is very important to make sure that, to demonstrate that the document is not falsified or damaged or destroyed or altered in any way. Okay. So till the time evidence is not presented, you have to keep clear chain of custody. Then comes the perform the analysis. Now, analysis could be, of multiple types. You can do calculations, you can summarize, you can trace, you can do investigate on the basis of analysis. You do a lot of things, a lot of kind of analysis. Okay, and then at the end, you prepare a report, reporting part. You explain in detail what has happened, why you were hired, what evidence you collected, from where you collected. You present a detailed report. Okay. And then it doesn't end here. It is the next step is post proceedings. Your report and you yourself will be presenting your report in the court of law. You will be taken as an expert witness. Your testimony will be taken over there. Your report will be admitted as an evidence, and all those things go on. So this is how the step-by-step process of forensic accounting is there. Now I have a question. See, every time this develop the plan, collection of evidence, okay, analysis, we always see that this is in case of investigation, in case of due diligence, you cannot have one fit strategy for that. No, one fit strategy is not possible for these kind of scenarios. If I tell you, no, focus on these 10 areas, all the forensic accounting assignment will be done. Not at all. It's incorrect. But Can we have a basic structure of the reporting part over here? Yes or no? Can we have basic structure part of reporting over here? At least yes, because at the end we know what is expected in the court of law. Just because our evidence is going to accept it in the court of law, we have to keep in a structured way. We cannot keep in an unstructured way, or we cannot, change the format, or we cannot, basically prepare the report the way we want. No. If we want to be accepted as an evidence, there should be a way, there should be a structure. Similarly, now, I'm not sure how many of you are aware for this, but there is something that I want to discuss along with this. FAIS 510 reporting results. Have you heard about FAIS? Anyone? FAIS? Yes, no? Okay. Not an issue. Basically, FAIS is your forensic accounting and investigation standards. Yes, forensic accounting and investigation standards. So there are forensic accounting and investigation standards, which are basically, you can say, issued by the ICAI. Okay. So ICAI has published a full set of standards in the area of forensic accounting and investigation. Basically, they are known as FAIS. Okay. FAIS for the short of forensic accounting and investigation standard. Now, these standards come with a basically framework, the way we have framework in the auditing standards, same way you have framework also in this standard, okay, that provides that, okay, what are the basic principles, key concepts, how to read the standards, guidance, everything is there, okay. And along with that, you have a code of ethics that is applicable to all the scenarios. So, with the code of ethics and with the whole set of standards, you have a guidance available to carry out this forensic accounting and investigation assignments. Okay. Now the question will be, are you required to read and go through all the forensic and investigation standard? So I'll show you a list which is there. Okay, come on the page number basically in the module, that is 17.72. In the study material, 17.72. So there is a list of these standards given over here. So basically we have 100 series which talks about key concepts. Then you have 200 series. Okay. On the engagement management, which talks about objectives, acceptance, and appointment, using the work of an expert, communication with stakeholders, then standards on executing engagement, planning, evidence, conducting interviews, reviews, supervision, and testifying before competent authority.
Sir, normal essay plus standard on internal audit essay plus FBIS is.
But the thing as of now is like,
sir, they're just like cost karte karte.
No, it's not like that. Basically, how the scenario here is that these standards as of now you are not required to go through all these standards. No, it is just for your information that these set of standards are available. So are you required to go with these standards, remember the numbers, go through each standards? Answer is no as of now. This is just for your understanding, which is given over here. Like these are the list of standards which are applicable, which are being, being as of now issued by the institute. Okay. So again, when these standard will be notified and when this will be, will be applicable to all, then at that point in time you will come to know. But as of now, these are, open for the discussion. These are not yet implemented. Okay. So once these will be implemented, at that point in time, these will be applicable to all the charter accountants. Basically. So that's why, as of now, some discussions are going on this particular area. But again, these standards once applicable to, all the professionals. So as of now, it is not applicable to others who are not charter accountant. Okay. So that's why, but as of now, you are not required to go through or remember all the numbers and, what are in depth in these standards. That will not be required. That will not be asked. But just for your understanding, it is given that this is something which is present. Clear? Any doubt with this one? Any doubt? Okay. Now, basically what I was talking about is reporting part. See, there is a standard. I'm not going into detail. I'm just telling you the number that there is a reporting standard also. But apart from that, there is an expected way of reporting the forensic accounting and investigation reports, basically. So there is a specific way, like how you should prepare the report. There's this minimum elements are there which are required based on the understanding what being followed in the practice and how the court accepts it. So I'll tell you those basic and the minimum requirements. So the minimum reporting requirements includes, as usual, the first part is your title and addressee. Title, addressee. Okay. So to whom you are reporting to, who are the addressees and what is the title of your report. Then comes the scope and objective. Then comes the approach, because it's very important to demonstrate what approach you followed, what procedures you performed to collect the evidence. So procedure approach is required. Then sometimes you find an executive summary over here. Sometimes you find at the start of the report. So basically an executive summary is present. Then reference to any expert or to anything else that you have used upon. Let's say I relied upon some other report that was issued by, let's say, forensic. I am a forensic accounting. I'm preparing a report, forensic accounting report, but I relied upon the fraud investigators report. So there was a fraud investigation earlier. I'm using that report as a report of expert. So reference to that, I'm required to give. I'm required to give a reference to that. Then I'm required to provide the fact of the case. Okay. Facts of the case which are there. Plus, I'm required to give the details on what you can say is that the assignment is carried as per the either FAIS standards, okay, FAIS, or it has been carried through any other, regulation, whichever regulation is there, or any other law based on any other law. If you are not able to comply with FAIS, then you need to report why and what were the material departures over here. Then list of findings, whatever you have found it till now, along with your assumptions, if you have taken any, that you need to report your assumptions, disclaimers, limitations, whatever it is. And then you need to give a conclusion or outcome of here. What is the conclusion or outcome of whatever you did? So this is how the whole report is structured. You can say minimum reporting requirement is there. Clear with this? Any doubt till now? Any doubt, guys? Any doubt? No? Yes? Anything? Okay. Now there was a question earlier which I kept it for later on. That is why I'm not using the term auditing. Why I'm using the term accounting. The reason because after understanding all these things, we could analyze and we could say that, okay, no, we are collecting accounting evidence. See, what I'm doing over here is I'm collecting the accounting evidence. I am identifying issues with respect to the accounting. The evidence are with respect to the accounting, not basically examination or performing auditing or auditing related evidence. No. The objective here is to gather the evidence with respect to the accounting part. Okay, financial related. When I talk about forensic auditing, it is something with respect to more onto the fraudulent investigation and fraudulent, auditing of fraudulent transactions. Again, it goes more onto the fraud side. But forensic accounting not only covers your fraud investigation, but it covers beyond that. It is wider in scope. That's why these are the two different terms. Okay. So it could be onto the financial matters, it could be financial dispute, it could be money laundering, a lot of things can be there. Over there, I could say forensic auditing is more restricted in terms to examination of financial records to identify fraud, discrepancies, irregularities. So it's limited. That's why we use the term accounting. And that's why if even with the standards, you say forensic accounting and investigation, not auditing. Okay. I hope I have answered your question. Any other doubt, guys? Any other doubt till now that you have? Any doubt that whatever we have discussed till now? Anyone?
सर स्टेप्स के अलावा फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट की कोई भी क्वेश्चन में डायरेक्टली हमें एनालिसिस करके खुद एनालिसिस करना पड़ेगा कि उसमें क्या क्या ट्रांजेक्शन्स हो सकते हैं, लाइक कैसे उन्होंने फ्रॉड किया होगा, खुद उसको एनालिसिस करके आंसर लिखना पड़ेगा, राइट, अपनी ओन लैंग्वेज में
In exam?
यस सर. एग्जाम्पल ऑफ फॉरेंसिक्स ऑडिटर्स जो इन्होंने भी दे रखे हैं, जैसे पेज नंबर 59 पे है, तो उन्होंने सिर्फ ओनली उसको दिखा रखा है कि ये हम ये किया वो किया. तो क्वेश्चन केस बेस्ड स्टडीज ही आती हैं. तो
Yeah. See, basically, when you are writing in your exam, what will be expected in your case? One, the understanding of the topic. Okay. Number two, if it is a case-based scenario, then you need to write about, let's say, for example, red flags which are with respect to that particular type of fraud. If it is a type of fraud related question, then what are the red flags? What are the possible scenarios that could be, pointing out towards that particular area. That's why reading of the types of fraud which is given over here is very important.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये नहीं था, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि जैसे उन्होंने एग्जांपल दे रखा है, जैसे ये द अकाउंटेंट ऑफिसर वाला एग्जांपल है फार्मा कंपनी का, तो उन्होंने जो इनके नीचे मतलब उन्होंने जो एनालिसिस कर रखी है टू आइडेंटिफाई द रीजन ऑफ वेरिएंसेस वगैरह करके, वो ही हमें इस तरह से ही हमारे आंसर्स लिखने हैं। हमें कोई पॉइंट या कोई भी ऐसे या किसी भी चीज को कोट करके नहीं लिखना ना, ऐसे अगर ऐसी कोई केस स्टडी आती है, मतलब लिखने का तरीका क्या होगा?
See, again, let's say for example, this particular question only. Okay. This particular question. Now here, this is an example given. Now, if you go below, I'll just show you an example. Just a minute. Let's say these questions which are there. Okay. This one, question number 17. So what they are talking about, advise the management about the difference in forensic accounting and audit. Over there, although it's a case scenario based question, okay, still you are required to answer with respect to the difference.
तो ये तो क्लियर कट जो बुक्स में लिखा है, बुकिश लैंग्वेज लिखनी है इसके अंदर की फॉरेंसिक ऑडिट और इसमें और नॉर्मल ऑडिट में क्या डिफरेंस है, राइट?
Not bookish language, but actually whatever the difference is in actual. If you can write, see again, there is no issue in writing in your own words till the time it is not changing the meaning. And I have demonstrated earlier also. Let's say if I just report a high risk area, if I say high risk versus higher risk of material misstatement, you might think both are similar, but there's a huge difference in both of the terms. So that's why you can write in your own words till the time it is not changing the the meaning of that particular topic. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, sir.
I think not. You are not sound satisfied with the answer. No issues. Basically, see, again, I will tell you one thing. At the end, what is expected is to read the chapter, have the understanding, no need to mug up the chapter. Like, it is not required that you write line by line what is given in the study material. No. Let's say, for example, the question is on the red flags. Let's say, with respect to some fraudulent transaction, you have been asked, like, okay, tell me what could be the red flags to identify this kind of fraud. Over there also, it is not expected you to write the red flags, which are, let's say, for example, in your study material, there are 10 red flags. You can write 12, 2 additional. Or you can write, what you think can be the red flags in that particular scenario. Might be there with the same wordings, might not be there. But that means you are written wrong. Answer is no. Okay. So at the end, your answer should be like what is asked about, and what could be what you can say. Let's say, for example, red flags. Then, if you can answer about the red flags, but in your own words, which is not changing the meaning, which might not be there in the study material, perfectly fine. But generally, in your exam, anything which which is not in your study material will have a very less chance to be asked. So at the end, your study material is the final thing which will cover your questions.
Okay, sir, got it.
Any other doubt, guys? Sanjana, you have some doubts?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please ask.
सर वो प्रोफेशनल एथिक्स और डिजिटल ऑडिटिंग से रिलेटेड है?
No issues. Ask. You can ask now.
सर जैसे प्रोफेशनल एथिक्स में कोड ऑफ एथिक्स हैं, क्या वो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी एक्ट का पार्ट है?
Code of ethics. No, code of ethics is the code issued by the ICAI. So it is applicable to all chartered accountants.
तो जैसे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी एक्ट है, वैसे जैसे काउंसिल की गाइडलाइंस है, वैसे ही कोड ऑफ एथिक्स आईसीआई ने अलग से प्रोनाउंस कर रखा है।
Kind of, you can say.
सर डिजिटल ऑडिटिंग में मैक्सिमम टॉपिक ऐसे हैं जो मिलते मिलते से हैं, जिनके आंसर जैसे एक तो साइबर रिस्क है जो हमारा, उसमें स्टेप्स हैं, उनमें 3 पॉइंट हैं, आइडेंटिफाई करो, ब्लास्ट का रिमूव करो, और उसके बाद जो दे रखा है कि साइबर रिस्क फ्रेमवर्क में जो पॉइंट है वो मैक्सिमम सेम है, लेकिन जैसे उसमें 3 पॉइंट्स हैं और इसमें सिर्फ 5, इसमें 5 पॉइंट्स हैं, तो कैसे पता चले?
See, let me show you that. Let me open the study material so that I can explain you in better way. So there are two things when I remember this chapter. There are two things which are there. One was the cyber risk assessment, and there was a one framework given, if I'm not wrong. So there are two things which are given differently. Let me show you. Just give me a minute. Let me open the chapter. Can you just tell me the page number? Which page number it is? Possible you for to tell page number? I think it is just a minute. It is there going on that particular topic. So your question is from chapter number 12, and the page number I remember, I think somewhere it's just a minute.
12.12 and 13, sir.
Yes, 12.12 and 13.
15, 14, 16.
Yeah. 12.12 over here. Okay. Now, basically, you are talking about this one. Sorry, not this one. So you were talking about this one, cybersecurity framework, basically. Correct?
Yes, sir.
These three stages: cyber risk stage, and then you have a cybersecurity framework. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what are these three steps might be similar to this one. Why? Reason because cybersecurity framework is a bigger concept which involves your risk assessment, cybersecurity risk assessment. So that's why you are seeing similar steps, because these are the steps to assess the cyber risk. Once you have assessed the cyber risk, then you go to the next steps, which are protecting the risk and responding to the risk and recovering from the risk. So it is the continuation of the cyber risk identification and assessment. And when you identify, when you assess the cyber risk, and then you respond and recover from it, together it becomes a bigger topic known as a cybersecurity framework.
Okay, sir.
That's why it's a kind of, you feel there is a repetition, but these are the two different things. Sometimes, enterprises or companies, they only focus on the cyber security risk identification and assessment, because after the assessment, they might come up to the conclusion, okay, we don't have that much cyber security risk or involved in our case. Okay, so the responding and recovering might not be relevant for them. But in most of the multinational corporates or IT sector and companies, they adopt a cybersecurity framework, whole framework.
सर एग्जाम में कोई ऐसा क्वेश्चन आ जाए जिसमें हम समझ ना पाए कि ये फ्रेमवर्क पूछ रहा है या फर्स्ट स्टेप स्टेजेस पूछ रहा है?
See, I don't think so. There will be a scenario where you might be, getting not a clear question. So what I have seen till now is either it is from this chapter or from the chapter that we were discussing. So whenever question is there, it is pretty much clear like what they are asking. Now, if you have, let's say for example, if there is a question that talks about, okay, explain cybersecurity framework. I'll show you. See, if you see question number 5, this briefly describe the cybersecurity framework. It is asking the whole framework. At the end in exam also, there might be a scenario given, and then at the end there will be something like that. Okay, they are asking about the framework. When the term framework, cybersecurity framework comes, you need to give the 5-step approach. But when they are talking about the cybersecurity risk, what are the risks, how risk assessment identification is done, you can go for 3-step approach.
Okay, sir.
Any other doubts you have?
अभी मैंने इतना ही पढ़ा था.
No issues. What I will suggest you guys is like read the chapter, even the chapter number 17 that we were discussing right now. Okay, read chapter number 17, go through chapter number 17, because a lot of things are given, a lot of fraud schemes and a lot of things are given. Once you will read, once you will practice, you might come up with doubts. You might.
सर
Yes,
वन रिक्वेस्ट
yes.
सर इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक पे आप भी वेबिनार ले लीजिए ना, जैसे अभी हमारे अकाउंट्स के वेबिनार चल रहे हैं.
I will check with the team if it is possible. I'll definitely let you know, the guys, because that is something which is decided by the board of studies. I'll see if there are certain webinars scheduled for you guys.
इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक्स ओनली, लाइक जैसे कि प्रोफेशनल एथिक्स है या फिर ऐसे इसका रिवीजन है, जस्ट ओनली ये शॉर्ट रिवीजन हो गया कुछ.
Okay, I will check with the board of studies, because something that is not basically I need to check with them.
ओके सर.
Any other doubt? Any doubt? No? Okay. No issues. Perfectly fine. What I would expect from you guys is read the chapter. You read chapter number 17. And if you have any doubts, you can come up in the next lecture. So next we will be starting chapter number 18. I would recommend to read, at least something from chapter number 18. Because it is some altogether different. Whatever we have seen till now, I would show you things. I would show you practical examples of ESG, BRSR reporting, IC reporting. It is altogether different than what you have seen till now. It is beyond financial. Okay, it is beyond financial. It is more onto the, different aspects. So no issues. So read something just to make yourself familiar with the topic. What is ESG, key terms, BRSR, IR reporting and all that stuff. IFRS S1, S2, all those things we will discuss. And then, we will be having chapter number 18. So chapter number 18, I think, is our last chapter in this session. After that, I think all the chapters will be done. And, we will be covering all the full subject. Okay. So read the chapter, bring up your doubts. So we have 2 lectures for the chapter number 18. Ask as much doubts as possible. No issues in that. Even after that, no issues. You can send your queries, your doubts to the board of studies. There are mail IDs given. There are links given. You can use that. You can send your queries. Your queries will be answered. Okay. So don't worry on that. Just read, practice, and don't keep queries with yourself. Ask as much as you can. Trust me, that will really help. Okay, guys. If no further doubts, then thank you. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for participating in today's session. I will see you in the next session. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes.